home. Nobody home. How you doing, Don?
I'm okay. Kristen being in Colorado the last few days, she got back today because she was back in the building today.
Sure.
Um, just too many damn emergency room trips over the weekend.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. Oh, you brought me another one. I didn't even finish the one I've got. Oh, sure. You can put it here. Oh. Okay. I don't know where my Evil Dead one is. I gotta find it. I think it's on the stove somewhere. My boy got me Ash versus the Evil Dead bottle opener.
Oh, nice.
Yes, he's a good boy.
Yeah, he is a good boy. Yes, he treats
He's
his.
he knows his mom.
Mm.
What is the way to your mom's heart?
Mm.
The way that has the most blood and gore.
Yes, that's true. So I know you didn't watch the Oscars. So,
God no.
yeah, it was different.
I don't doubt that it usually is. I
I,
don't. I. That's fine. I understand and appreciate what the Oscars are supposed to be for, and I think that certain people and performances need to be celebrated, but there are so many more movies out there that are better and worthy,
yeah.
but
Oh,
they
yeah.
can't afford to put their names in because it's all about money.
Well, for me, I think some of the luster I lost with I lost some of the luster of the Oscars when it came to discovering that they do uh, campaigns.
Of course they do.
I wasn't quite aware of that. I was, I guess, a little naive, but I didn't realize that they had like campaigns and they they spent money and they have gatherings and special showings and all that fun stuff. Um, and I didn't realize that they had some of those. So once I discovered that, I'm like, well, shit, that explains a lot.
Yeah, so it's not quite so much about the actual quality of the art presented. It's more about the ability for them to sell themselves.
That's why the most that I'm usually interested in is the nominations more so than who actually wins because there's a little less campaigning with the nominations. I mean, they put out the screeners and that for you to vote on, but it's not till the nominations are picked and then they really start their campaigns. And yeah, that took a little luster off of it for me. And I say that and I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna watch. I end up watching it. I'm weak. I understand that. I'm weak.
You have an addiction.
I do have an addiction. I have many addictions, all of them entertainment based, most of them dealing with movies. So, uh,
Mm, yeah.
oh,
Mine is stories in general,
yeah.
whether it's movies or books or music, it's stories.
I think for me, I fell out of reading because I actually was a heavier reader when I was younger. Um, is just because I find so many movies now to watch that it's like reading cuts into that time for me. So I know it sounds bad, but um, and then there was I think also what happened with me was reading and then reading the books and then seeing the movies.
They're
For
two
me,
different stories. You
they
can't really
they,
compare them.
they are, and it's always sometimes I look at why did they bother. It's like The Relic. I know some people out there think The Relic is a fantastic horror film. Me, I'm like, I will always say that's one of the worst examples of um, them totally not sticking to the source material at all.
Well, there's
And
tons. I mean, half of
yeah,
Stephen King movies.
well, there's that too. But then again, I mean, some Stephen King miniseries come close because they're miniseries. You've got 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours of that you can possibly cover the story more. It's really hard to um, fit a Stephen King story in 2 hours or 2.5.
Yes.
You know, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you've seen trailers for. Well, you don't watch trailers, but you got the upcoming Pet Cemetery remake. Speaking of Stephen King, and I'm not sure about that. Don't get me wrong. I like John Lithgow. I'll watch him in anything. But I'm
Because he's awesome.
because it's John Lithgow. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean how
It's like Jeffrey Combs or Steve Buscemi for me. If it's in it, it's worth watching.
yeah. So I'm gonna see it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like they've changed the story up a bit, and of course the trailers. It's a good thing you're probably not watching trailers. If you watch trailers, they've already revealed a couple of things where if you're familiar with the story, you're like, why did they put that in the trailer? Why?
Here's one thing with me. Pet Cemetery, the movie that they made back, what was it, late 80s? That movie actually creeped me out far more than the book did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the movie was a better interpretation of the book. And I don't say that often.
No, but I think a number of people actually feel that way with Pet Cemetery. That
But of course, Tasha Yar.
well, yeah, there's Tasha Yar as well. That's legitimate. I mean, it's a horror movie, but also it's Tasha Yar, so
It's Tasha Yar.
you can't. Yeah, Star Trek crush. Gene Roddenberry. That's
Everybody had a crush on Tasha Yar.
Yeah, well, yeah, but Gene Roddenberry was known for his
strong female characters.
Strong female characters.
His love of women.
Yes, his love of women. That's a good way to put it. His love of women.
Hey, we put it in the positive. We spin positive.
Yes, yes. Even with the go-go outfits.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and don't think that Majel Barrett wasn't aware.
Oh, I am sure she was, but I'm sure she was kind of picking her battle. So.
Hey, he knew where she was. She knew where he was at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, yeah. She probably kick his ass too if something really. She really wanted to. She just kick his ass, because she seems like the type that just take no shits,
Indeed.
And it's Trek, Have you watched any of the Trek Discovery at all?
No. I'm with all of my other stuff. That is lower on my watch list right now.
Yeah, I have too many things on my watch list.
I've got the things that I'm watching now to catch up with. I'm almost done with Supernatural, which don't judge me.
I don't. My wife loves Supernatural. She watches that all the time.
Yeah, the interaction between Misha Collins and Mark A. Shepard is fantastic.
Yeah.
and then of course the fest films, and then of course whatever I'm watching for pleasure, what I'm reading, my trivia projects, and my boys got me Rayman for Christmas, and I'm playing it a lot.
Rain Man?
Rayman.
Oh, Rayman. Yes, Rayman. Yeah,
For the
that game.
Switch.
Nice.
Yeah, my thumbs are both bruised. I've been playing it so much. I'm out of practice.
You have a Switch, do you?
They got the Switch for Sheldon for Christmas.
Oh, nice.
And they got me Rayman.
Here, you get the console, but she gets the game, so now she plays on your console. So
yeah. They got him Let's Go Pikachu.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because of the interaction, my friend's got that too. He says it's pretty slick, the things you can do with it. So
Sheldon hasn't explored a whole lot of the interaction between Pokemon Go and Let's Go Pikachu yet.
Yet.
He's more amused with watching me
Rayman
right now. Yeah.
That's a controller thrower. No, just kidding. Some of those old games really were, though.
Oh gosh, they were.
Yeah, Mega Man 2. I'm looking at you. I have PTSD from Mega Man 2. I played it way too much, trying to beat it with my buddy Jim. That was way. Yeah, that was a battle. Well, the toughest part was those games. You didn't always, you didn't have where, I'll save here or I'll save here. It was, you failed the end of this level. Guess what? You're going to have to do the whole thing over again.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about this is it's at least in the early levels, which I'm at because, I'm an old person and I'm slow and I never played a whole lot of video games. So I'm in easy mode right now.
Oh, sure.
So as I go through, they save in segments.
Oh, yep.
So yeah, like when I die, I can go back as many times as I want to figure out how to get through it.
Sure.
And you don't have to go back to the beginning. You just go back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they've got training wheels on.
Oh, no. It all depends on how you want to play. It's like my kids, of course, go figure, our competitive household.
You're not competitive, not at all.
No. My boys always, well, my oldest at least, whenever we rent a video game or they buy a video game, he will put it on it'll be a game he's never played before. He will put it on the hardest setting and he will play through the game because that's what and then if he unlocks a harder level, then he's going to go for that. He likes playing the hardest level. Me, I'm not nearly as devoted to playing the hardest level anymore. Depends on the game. Like Borderlands 2, I believe it was Borderlands 2. We got it, and then we got the DLC that added like one or two extra harder modes. And I've played all the way up through the last mode because I really love the game. The game's just super fun. But I haven't played through the hardest mode because I heard in the game, variety of guns, all different kinds of guns with different stats. But there's a type of gun where you, and there's also barrels where you put goo on the enemies and it makes them weaker so you can shoot them. What I've been told is on this hardest level, the only way you can really kill enemies at all is to get them with this goo.
Oh, wow.
Even the simplest ones are like, oh, crap. And then also Diablo 3 is a game where I played through it. It was a great game. Loved it. And then I unlocked the hardest level. So I figured, sure, what the hell? I'll just crank it up to the hardest level and try it. And the first enemy I have to fight took forever to kill. And I'm like, oh, God. I'm like, yeah, And so at one point for me anyway, it's like, okay, this is no longer fun. This is just work. This is just too much work. So I like playing through and sometimes and getting the storyline more so than um, having to get the biggest challenge. You know,
Yep.
I don't put it on the easiest either, though. I'm nothing like that. But well,
Well,
depends on the game. Uh, Sometimes I do, because I'll hit it out of the gate running for the midway, and after I die about the umpteenth time, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna go on the easier mode.
but there has to be a curve for, I mean, unless all video games, and I'm not an avid video game player, but unless
Mm.
all video games have the same controls combinations for the same abilities, there's got to be a period where you just have to get familiar with what you're supposed to do to jump, to run, to shoot, to change weapons, blah, blah, blah.
Oh yeah, I mean that was I never quite got the hang of Mortal Kombat. I play it. I play some other fighting games too, but some of the fighting games I just could not get the hang of the timing of the button combinations. So, I'd be doing basic stuff and whoever I was playing would just annihilating me because they knew like the four different button presses you could do at just the right time to just, combo the shit out of you. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
okay. At least with, Mortal Kombat 1, you could backspin a guy into a corner and just keep back spinning. Back leg spinning. I remember correctly. Um yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the video games are some of them I like just for the story, like the movie. I mean, it's a movie. I call it a movie because it's pretty much like a movie. The Last of Us is a great zombie apocalypse game, and I like it more for the story than the challenging putting a challenging gameplay. I've actually played through that game like 3 times. and and I'm playing on like one of the harder modes now, and it's still fun, but it's mostly for the storyline because the storyline's great in it. It's one of those where it feels like a true zombie apocalypse film. Uh, you know, it's got that feel, just kind of like for the Left 4 Dead movies, games. I call them movies.
Mhm.
Uh, because it was like you're in a zombie movie. I love the Left 4. I played, Steam. You're familiar with Steam?
Yes, I'm
Uh,
familiar with Steam. Well, I'm aware of Steam. My
you're aware.
boys
You're
are
aware. Yeah.
familiar with Steam.
Yeah. One of those many now softwares out there, the front end loaders where you can play a variety of games. Um, well, Left 4 Dead 2, it came out, and Alex Maurer, he got me hooked on Left 4 Dead. He's like, you got to try this game. I'm like, yeah, I'm not really first person sure. He's like, no, trust me, just try. And after 200 hours on that game, uh, Left 4 Dead 2 came out, and I have like 280 some odd hours on that game. Because Left 4 Dead 2 was just as much fun. And the first time I was playing Left 4 Dead, I actually had a couple of zombie nightmares. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow, this never happens. And,
I love zombie nightmares. They're my favorite.
oh, and I see Kara is here. Hello, Kara.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi.
Hello.
So, Kara, with us right now is Dawn. So she's joining us, and Tanya will be joining us soon. So,
Okay.
so how have you been, Kara?
Doing okay.
Now, where you live, have you been getting a lot of snow?
I'm in Texas, so no,
Oh.
not at all.
Lucky you. lucky you. You can have some of ours. We'll ship some down to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take it. It'll be a nice break before summer hits over here.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah.
Did you see there was I was reading some news thing about a snow tornado in was it New Mexico?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well,
Where was that?
I knew like Tucson, Arizona, the cops put out a hilarious video because they got snow. I mean, they got cactuses with like 3 inches of snow on them. It's crazy. But no, I hadn't heard about a snow tornado, and we're getting that much closer to the Day After Tomorrow movie,
Yeah, it
which
was
is
in the Washington Post. Yeah, it was in the Washington Post. A snow tornado spun up in New Mexico last week. It might
sweet.
be the first documented in the U.S.
You know, it's funny. Years ago, when I first saw the Day After Tomorrow movie, I saw it for Quaid, and I laughed. I laughed at the idea of like, freezing hurricanes and freezing tornadoes and such. And now I'm not laughing so much.
Mm.
Cara, you've seen Day After Tomorrow, right?
I saw it when it was first in theaters.
Yeah.
It's been ages.
Yeah, I chuckled at that because I laughed like, ha ha, yeah, right. And now I'm buried in snow, and I'm like, ooh. The movie was okay.
You know, the nice thing about being obsessed with books, Mark, is
Yeah.
I will have an unending supply of kindling.
Heat, yes, that's
Uh-huh.
true. That's true. You will have yeah. I'll have to burn the bodies of my enemies for heat. So
They'll all be frozen.
that's true. But yeah, I remember my old job, someone who she lived in a coworker of mine. She did the IT for a warehouse down in Houston, I think it was. Or maybe it was Austin. Anyway, she used to talk about, because she was originally from Wisconsin and she moved down there, and she used to kind of chuckle whenever there would be like an inch of snow, the entire town shuts down. Like, do you get that by you, Cara? If you happen to get snow at all?
Usually if it's like a freeze, just because most Texans don't know what to do in ice, so some businesses will close down, or they'll just say we don't have to come into work for the day, which is pretty cool. So we get ice days.
Well, that's nice. Well, I imagine because a lot of buildings down there too probably don't necessarily have heaters in either. But yeah, it's really wild. Different areas you don't realize for weather. Well, like Corey Udler, he's living in West Virginia now. Is it, Don? I think it is.
Yes, he know. I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, he moved to West Virginia or whatever. He got really tired of the winters, and we joke, you have hurricanes. He's like, yeah, I might get one or two. Look at you guys now. But he talked about, he found it funny where he lived when they were getting snow and they got like an inch or two, and he's from Wisconsin, so he's just driving around like nothing. And he's like, yeah, it's hilarious seeing people try to drive in this down here.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So Tanya will be joining us. She is going to join us about right at 7:30. So, well, 9:30, depending on your time where you're at. So, Cara, are you looking forward to the new Pet Cemetery?
I haven't been keeping up with it. I just really don't keep up with new stuff since there's always something new. It's just takes too much time, but I'll eventually just blind watch it when it's out. I'm avoiding trailers and all of that, so.
Oh, I like her. I do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I don't always avoid trailers. Sometimes I can't because I go to so many movies that it's at the front of the movie, and then I'm just like,
yeah. Well, it doesn't help when they put out so many trailers. Like the teasers are fine, but then you get the longer trailers, which pretty much just spoil or ruin the film in some cases.
Yeah, well, that's like the latest Pet Cemetery one. They did a reveal basically, and I can understand if people are familiar with the story, but there's like a whole generation of folks in that who may not be familiar with the story. Yet
Yeah.
you've pretty well spoiled it by putting it, the little girl in the trailer all zombified. It's like, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I was happy that Happy Death Day to You didn't spoil the movie because the trailer gave it a completely different spin than what the movie actually was. And I know that put some people off, but I thought it was hilarious. Because Happy Death Day to You, the trailers, the way they edited the trailers was completely different than the type of film it actually was. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise. The first one was fun. I enjoyed it more than I fully expected to. I was like, okay, Groundhog Day with a slasher film. I can dig this. So, wait a few minutes here yet. You watch anything recently, Kara?
Haven't really been watching too much stuff. Just random episodes of South Park here and there.
Yeah. I used to watch South Park, but we stopped our cable, the extended cable, and then we stopped cable altogether. And I just never got back into it because I was like, I got other things to watch. But occasionally I'll catch an episode.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they still get away with that show because of the way the environment that we live in now. I'm surprised that show still airs any episodes. So
I say the same thing. I'm surprised I haven't been sued, or I guess they just settle and keep it quiet. I don't know.
I wouldn't doubt it, though. Apparently, the guys are making a movie version of the Book of Mormon.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Holy wow!
Matt Stone and Trey Parker, if I remember, I saw.
Hello?
Hey, Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
So, Tanya, we have Kara, and we have Dawn.
Hi.
Hello.
But yeah, the things I watch though. But yeah.
Wow. I will never forget the first time I saw Book of Mormon. Joyce and Michael took me, and they told me not to look up anything about it at all. So I didn't. Not who wrote it, not anything about it. So we showed up at the theater, and I'm looking around going, wow, I'm underdressed. Look at all these people all dressed up. Wow. And then the musical started.
Oh, nice.
And I went, you did what to me now? But yeah, they're going to make a movie. Okay.
Well, it could be in development hell till the end of time, but
it very well could be. But they did make Cannibal the musical.
They did make Cannibal the musical, and that's still a fantastic musical. Every time that shows you my brain. When anyone says, "Do you want to build a snowman?" I don't think of Frozen. I think of Cannibal the musical.
Fair enough.
How are you doing, Tanya?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Good. Glad you could join in the Oscar chat we had.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. What do you think of that hoopla though, Tanya? Because you watched it. Kara, did you watch the Oscars at all, or?
No, I don't do TV. Just stream stuff.
Oh no, I don't blame you. But Tanya, what do you think of the controversy? So many people making so much of the Lady Gaga Bradley number where she looked at him and they gave each other such steamy looks.
I actually didn't know that was a controversial thing.
Well,
I mean,
there's people making a whole bunch out of it, to which at least enough cinephiles are out there going, folks, it's called acting.
Mm-hmm.
They were putting on a performance.
They were, yeah.
It was the reputation of the song being that close. It's the heart of the movie, A Star is Born. They're going to play it up.
Right.
And, you know, they're just that good, because everybody's like, oh, I would have loved to see a camera cut to the wife, you know, Bradley, you know, and I'm like, she's the wife of an actor or a girlfriend of an actor, really? You know?
Yeah. No, I really thought I hadn't seen the movie, but I saw the, you know, the clips and stuff.
Right.
And I just thought that they were, you know, trying to be in character and embody the movie, just like you said. And I didn't think anything more of it. But also, I work in movies, so I know that kind of stuff is movie make believe, you know.
Which is why I had asked you, because I was going to ask you, like, yeah, that is acting. They're just acting, folks.
Mhm.
It's like on that big of a stage with that many supposed people watching. It's and like,
Yeah. In fact, I heard this thing once on like conventions or film festivals. You know the couple that's having an affair because they act like they're not together.
yeah, they don't want to be caught together at all. Yeah, because then somebody might actually suspect. So
Right.
yeah, that's actually good. I like that theory quite a bit.
I don't know if that's actually true, but I've heard that.
I wouldn't doubt it for some. So
Yeah.
What are you doing talking to me? Don't talk to me. Go away. Go away.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you to pass the butter. So we're going to talk Shivers, and we'll get rolling here, I guess.
Yeah. Do you want our questions pre or?
No, surprise us.
Okay.
Surprise us. We'll talk a little bit about kind of normal, where we'll talk a little bit about our general impression of the movie at first, and then we'll dive into some of the characters in that, and then we'll go to your all of your questions. And, that's how we'll kind of approach this. So I never really plan these things out, so I probably should one day.
It's a surprise for everybody.
It is a surprise. I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth, unfortunately, and I do apologize ahead of time for what I may or may not say. So let me just pull up the IBIM here. Are any of you comfortable? I'm going to ask ahead of time so I don't put you on the spot before we start. Are any of you comfortable with giving the synopsis of this film? Or would you like me to?
I guess I could. I'm worried about not doing it right, doing it justice, but I could take a stab at it.
Oh, giving it your own special spin is the best.
Yes. Have you listened to Glenn's? So yeah, he is our not always correct, but so entertaining. So. Okay, so if we're all ready, we'll get started here. Yes, my friends, thank you for coming down to the spoiler room, and it is another Welcome to Cronenberg episode. Yes, that's right. We are visiting Cronenberg once again, and it is his first full feature film that was wide released, and the film that everybody knows it by now is called Shivers from 1975. Yes, it's as old as I am. And tonight I have a fantastic crew with me to talk about this interesting film. Not only that, it is a first time, folks, in the spoiler room, 200 plus episodes. Tonight we have an all-female panel, so this should be very interesting. So especially for this film. So first off, we have back in the spoiler room with us the diva of the spoiler room herself. It is Dawn. Hello, Dawn.
Good evening, Mark. Good evening, ladies.
So glad to have you in here. And next to Dawn, she is back with us once again from Horror Retrospective. It is Kara. Hello, Kara. How are you?
Hello, doing okay.
Fantastic. I did get the name of the show right, correct? I hope so.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm really bad with names sometimes. So great to have you in here tonight. And next to Kara, I have returning once again to the spoiler room is Tanya Atomic. Hello, Tanya.
Yo, how's it going?
It's going all right. I know you were interested in talking about this film, so why don't you give the synopsis of David Cronenberg's Shivers?
Okay. So, Shivers is all about this kind for the day, when it came out, this kind of newfangled apartment complex where you have everything you need. It's semi isolated in the fact that it's on a little island, and it's got its own carport. It's got all these individual apartments with everything you could want inside, all state of the art. And the movie starts out explaining this apartment complex. A lot of people live there. They have shops within the complex, so you can actually stay there for long periods of time and not leave. It is semi-isolated, but people do come and go. And what happens is an infection of a parasitic type creature breaks out in this apartment building. And what it does, it invades the human host through an orifice, and it wants to reproduce, so it makes the human host crave sexual contact or some kind of contact of that nature with another human, and it creates these kind of like grossly sexual ravaging humans that attack all the other people in the building. And it's a sort of a host of different actors, so sort of like Robert Altman-esque in that way, where there's a lot of different characters and we see a lot of different people and how the organism affects them throughout the course of this. Is it one day or is it like a couple days? It's a short amount of time.
I got the impression it was like one day. I mean, a couple of them got infected early, but the big outbreak happened in like a day, I think.
Okay, so it's sort of this like sex attack version of Dazed and Confused.
That right there is a good summary. I like that. Sex creative version of Dazed and Confused. Nice. So we'll start with Kara. Kara, when do you remember when you first saw Shivers, and what are kind of your initial feelings with this film?
My first impression was the crazy starts up from the beginning. So it's more like, whoa, what's going on? And it's just kind of thrown into the whole thing. And then you do get kind of like that explanation segment where they kind of let you know what's going on with this whole, what was it, beneficial parasites or what was it, for organ transplants or something like that. And honestly, I had to sit with somebody because they have more of an interest in science than I do. So they kind of gave more their understanding of like how parasites work and all this. And it's kind of like, okay, well, the movie makes better sense now.
Yeah, it definitely just scratches the surface on science. Did you enjoy the film after you got done watching it? Was it what you expected or not what you expected?
I definitely like how it starts up with all of this confusion where you don't know what's going on, and then it just kind of progressively gets crazier as you go. It just never really settles down too much. It has a few slow points here and there, and then it just revs right back up again.
Yeah, it moves along the crazy very well. For the most part, I'll agree with that, definitely. And Dawn, how about you with Shivers?
So, considering the first time I saw it was last week,
nice.
It was helpful. As far as vivid first impressions go, first impressions kind of went, wow, pedophilia, rape, and wow. And then I was a little less shocked when I watched it the second time, so I was able to actually not be dwelling too much on the negative aspects of the film. But I really like how the film moved from being creepy and aggressive at the beginning to an almost peaceful place at the end.
Yeah, kind of. It's yeah. I see where you're going with that. Yeah, because you start off with that really brutal intercut scene, and then it's like he gives you all of this up front, and then the rest of the movie you're just like, oh, well, this ain't that bad.
Yeah, you pretty much go you go from the violence, and this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. Look at what it is doing to these people. And it's not, it doesn't get gentle for any part of it. And I thought it was really brave to have children in there, for sections of this, and not spare them from the ravages of the parasite.
Right, because it is an apartment building, so they're going to have kids in there. They didn't make it like this is not a family type of, not, not kid friendly apartment complex. So there would be some in there, yeah. And it is interesting that he presents those characters as well, even though for brief moments. Especially with today's goggles, you look at it going, "Holy crap!"
Yeah, and then there's the one scene that was just, it sticks in my brains, where the doctor's running down the stairs, and he sees the two young girls on leashes barking like dogs.
Yeah. David Cronenberg, no fear in
No
film.
fear whatsoever. It's part of what makes him brilliant.
Yes.
And that's the other thing that I thought. This is, if he were a new filmmaker making a film today and he came up with something like this, I'd be watching it going, wow, I cannot wait to see where it goes from here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And we'll dive in a little more into that because I like that idea too of if it was made today. So we'll hold on to that thought. But I want to get Tanya. I know Tanya mentioned she enjoyed this film. Do you remember when you first saw it, Tanya?
I don't remember exactly when I first saw it. It was a long time ago. It was I was a fan of David Cronenberg ever since I saw Dead Ringers when that came out, and had been watching his films. And I saw something, I think it was like a Siskel and Ebert, like older episode or something, where they were talking about it. And I was like, that looks batshit. I have to see it. And so I watched it. And it's one of my favorite films. It's one of my favorite Cronenberg films. And it's one of the scariest films I have ever seen. This movie freaks me out more than most movies I've ever seen. And part of it's because I'm afraid, my biggest fear is like other people, like humans, like human strangers, not like people I know, but like people I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, and that's like one of my biggest fears. And the way that this movie plays upon not only people attacking you, but the sexual attack is so creepy and so disturbing and icky. It just feels so icky. And he just presents every kind of form of the darkest sides of the icky parts of sexuality. I mean, he shows, and not just that. I mean, there's other parts of sexuality, but the horror in it is all the icky, yucky stuff about sex, which, like we were talking about, it includes like the children, the pedophilia, the incest. There's a moment there too, and it's like the sickest things about sex and sex coming to attack you. And that really works for me. This movie scares me. Like, I've seen it many times, and every time I see it, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, Starliner Apartments and Starliner Island is home to the most depraved. In the disguise though of just a great place of the future. And you come to find out that, yeah, it is an icky place. Now granted, most of that is influence of the parasites that eventually, infect the entire everybody. But I'm wondering if the parasites also kind of bring to surface some of these people's inner most sexual desires or thoughts. Don, what do you think about it? Do you think maybe Cronenberg was playing a little bit that these people did always have these thoughts, but thanks to like little slugs, it kind of brings that to the surface?
You know, possibly. I was kind of thinking, I was thinking how it went through from all that icky and violent sexual aggression at the beginning, and it kind of transitions to something peaceful at the end. I was wondering if it was more that the parasites force their hosts to act out and remove all inhibitions and act out every taboo they've been afraid of, to finally get to a place where, it's just sex. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a natural it's a natural process. And that's why everybody is rather so calm and accepting at the end. And that's why it kind of seems like a good thing that everybody is infected at the end, which again is kind of weird.
That is kind of weird. Kara, what do you think about that? What do you think do you think the slugs, what Don is saying is there, where that's kind of, you lose your inhibitions of sorts and kind of make you accept your sexuality?
I hadn't thought about it at the time when I was watching it, just because I was just still in very wow, but it does make sense, I guess, because it kind of, I guess to a degree, the parasites are controlling the person, so it just goes back to the more, I guess, the primal or the base of whether it's not just the need to just be sexually satisfied, or just that need to just procreate. It just kind of intensifies that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Tanya?
It could be, that could be part of it. I don't know if it's necessarily that. My personal take on it was that it's kind of showing, it's sort of metaphoric to, like, dark side of sex, or how sex can be scary, or sex in a negative way can be terrible. But also I think that it has something to do with the era, because this was made in the very mid 70s, where there's like high-rise living was sort of this big new thing, or this big popular thing, and also it's sort of the era of like sexuality and exploration and loose sexuality. And I think that the movie explores sort of the juxtaposition of new technology and higher technology, and where we can go as a species, like into the future, but also there's this animalistic and like terrorizing and attacky kind of side to us at the same time, and just things like that. But it could be that could also go with the fact that the parasites are taking away some of the frontal lobe activity and making this other stuff. I don't think it's necessarily that, but it could very well be.
Yeah, I think at least it's part of it, because I think you hit it on the head, though. This is definitely one of the main things is a metaphor for the sexual revolution in this that was happening at the time. I think there was, in Cronenberg's way, because he loves his body horror, and you definitely get that in here. I mean, I watched his first one, his first film, Crimes of the Future, and that short-circuited my brain for so long with everything that he had in it, especially dealing with the body and sexuality. And here, it's just ramped up from that. Here he's actually got like a Hollywood, a backing. He's kind of a Hollywood backing. I mean, the company that backed the film actually did like exploitation and softcore stuff, but it was still a studio. He got Ivan Reitman, of all people, to agree, have him make the film. And So this is just him, but he still hasn't changed, I think, his ideals and his concepts that he wants to get across. And yeah, sexual revolution, I think, is really at one of the core here. And the fact that I think he's poking fun of the middle class a bit in this film, with the high rise and the the stylish, quote unquote, stylish living. And the sexual revolution was kind of, that was kind of, at least the impression I got. Now, I was born in 75, so I couldn't tell you exactly how it is, but the impression I always got was, especially in some movies, how it kind of portrays it to hippies more so than the middle class of being or these folks who are, upright citizens in the hotel and in this apartment complex. And, that it was right, sex and that the sexual revolution of a bunch of hippie guys from Woodstock. So I think he's poking a little bit of fun at that and showing that no, they can be just as sexual. Do you think there's some satire going on here, Tanya, with this as well?
I do. I mean, especially at the very beginning where they're talking about the modern high rise and all the amenities and all those amazing things, and it just seemed to be like a parody of one of those like timeshare commercials or come live here. So there was a little bit of that, I think. And then when the ladies walk by, the older ladies walk by with the umbrella, there's a little bit of humor definitely in it, but it's dark.
Oh yeah, it's definitely dark humor. Kara, did you pick up on any satire in here? Maybe he was picking, fun of the middle class.
Yeah, I guess to a degree, I wouldn't say necessarily making fun, but I guess just more like the whole irony, like it has the impression of being like this whole hoity-toity posh place, and it's just totally infected with all of these parasites and all of this other stuff going on.
Well, yeah, because with that video in the beginning, you get kind of the clean cut look. Oh, look, this is a great place. And then you come to find out that, there was a rather promiscuous, everybody having an affair with each other and all these other things going on. And you realize, oh, no, this isn't quite like what they were trying to portray it as. Dawn, how about you did you pick up on any satire in here?
Oh, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, especially the bits that you mentioned with the slideshow presentation introduction about the upscale high rise, and then one of the first things that happens is you find out that the guy is cheating on his wife.
Right. I mean, and not only that, but that whole opening sequence that we mentioned out that's got one of the more brutal, violent scenes are intercut with the guy talking to the Swedish couple, the couple, Mr. and Mrs. Sweden. And he's talking about how great amenities and everything. And intercut with that, we have the old scientist who's beaten the snot out of this young woman. And he just brutally murders her and then commits some serious suicide. And we find out later why. He was trying to stop or start the infection. I'm not quite sure which one it was, but, but they cut in between that, the presentation of the guy going, oh, this is a great place to live. And then you've got her being thrown through a table. It's like, Jesus, lets you know what type of film you're in. Now, we do have our couple in here, the Tudors, which, some of these names I don't think are coincidence at all. But Tudors, Nicholas, who's the main kind of infectee, and his wife. Kara, what did you think of this couple, the guy with his main infection and his wife who seemed to trying to be the perfect wife and all, but what do you think of this couple and this dynamic these two had?
I would say just my impression is the whole relationship was just broken to begin with, and she was just trying really hard to make it work or, convince herself that things were fine, that there wasn't an actual relationship issue, and just kind of, silently suffering through it. And I mean, even that one scene where he just kind of demands that, you know, they have sex, and she's terrified and she doesn't know what to think, and she's trying to get away from him. And then there's this whole bit, well, I want to see you better, I want my contacts.
Yeah, that was that was a great I'm like, wow, I don't think I've ever seen that one before. I need to see you better. Yeah, it's an interesting you know, and she's just the way she was written at first, you know, because she's really outside of the minor characters of the Swedens and the one girl who dies, she's the first female character we see. So I was kind of worried about how the other female characters were going to be written in here, but I realized she was just a representation of one of the it felt like types of female characters David Cronenberg, I think, was trying to present. Because then you also have Lynn Lowry's nurse and Barbara Steele's Bets, and they all are a bit different, which I did like to see. But Dawn, what do you think of this couple and their dynamic?
Well, I think you're right. She was representative of the unhappy housewife of the day, and the person who was just going through the motions and didn't really have a whole lot of satisfaction in her life, just trying to keep the image going. There was no warmth or love left in that relationship, and that was clear.
Right. Makes you wonder if there actually ever was, really.
Yeah, or if they, you know, a lot of marriages are just, you know, marriages of convenience and
right
finances, and that seems to be what it was. In a time, especially in a time where, with the sexual revolution, people were really wanting to emphasize being together because they wanted to be together, not because they had to be.
Right. Yeah, you had that going on. And so, yeah, I think she was as well. I agree that she was just there to present that aspect, one of those aspects of female characters that we've seen in there, because she was really different from the others. Unfortunately, we don't see too much growth from her character either, though. Unfortunately, well, until she gets infected, but by her friend. Tanya, what did you think of this couple here and our first introduction to basically our first main female character?
Well, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. The character was the character of the couple were sort of representative of the looks good on paper sort of middle class, like how you were talking about. He's kind of poking at, and I think in a way that they sort of are representative of the building itself. You know, like it looks good on paper, it looks good from the outside, but it's infected inside. So, and they kind of stood for that too. And I felt like that one scene, you know, where he's infected and he's demanding that she have sex with him and stuff. And for a minute, I feel like she doesn't know that there's actually something wrong with him. You know, it takes her. I think that there's something really dark, you know, in their dynamic that I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong, but I felt like it took her like a minute that she felt like that could be him.
Right. She felt like that could be him, but at the same time, she was still repulsed, and just repulsed even more when she found out he was infected.
Right.
You know, it felt almost like she would have been resistant regardless, just because this was not normal for them. You get the impression. So, yeah, no, I thought it was a really interesting characters that he wrote into here with this representation, which, you know, she's kind of completely opposite of the Barbara Steele character, who is the single independent woman of the group, you know, the really strong female character in this. And Dawn, how'd you feel about Barbara Steele, old Janine's friend?
She was entertaining. A lot of people talk about that bathtub scene. Like,
yeah.
I read a lot about that. I've read a lot about that bathtub scene, and forgive me for not being more savvy, but is that the first scene of its type, because I don't know when the first time that scenario happened in film.
Oh, where there's either a slug or something in the bathtub that kind of
Yes.
that violates the female.
And if that is the original, if that is the kind of the source of that scene, wow, did that spawn some awesome scenes to follow it, from Nightmare on Elm Street to Slither to independent films like in Hole in the Wall.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But if it wasn't the first time that happened, I thought it was fairly tame.
Sure. Well, but still, I mean, for the times, it was still, and it was it's actually an impressive effects shot as well. But
Yeah.
and it's still disturbing because Barbara Steele really sells that. But yeah, I think it is. It might be the first time we actually got that in a bathtub specific scenario with that. But yeah, Bets is entertaining, and she does get that famous bathtub scene everybody talks about.
And man, just throughout the entire performance, does she exude sexuality, but well controlled.
In control and dominant and very strong. Like, she not only controlled, but this is truly her. You get the feeling like she is showing you her. She's not putting up a guise at all, and she's ready to kick your ass if you say something wrong. She has no qualms with saying her mind, I think. Yeah, I like the Betts character. Cara, what'd you think of the Betts character with Barbara Steele and the bathtub scene?
I mean, I kind of got that same impression. It's definitely, especially the way she's kind of thrashing around, and the eyes rolling up and the mouth opening. It's obvious she's getting off on being violated by this leech or slug or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't exactly an you get the impression it wasn't exactly an unpleasant thing for her necessarily. What would you think of her character in general, though, especially in comparison to the Janine character who we get to see earlier?
I mean, I would say, at least overall, she's probably one of the more standout female characters. I mean, everyone else just kind of reads, or they seem very cliche, in my opinion. And I mean, even though that's just kind of like another archetype of the era, I don't know. At least to me, she kind of seems to step or stand out. She's more the modern woman, as you say, the ass kicker. And
yeah.
I mean, even in this day and age, I would say that type of woman is still very much a rarity, like a true alpha, where you look at her and you know not to mess with her.
Yeah, and she's a good friend to Janine, even though she believes Janine is really making some mistakes, and she tries to put it gently to her friend. But she would probably just kick Nick to the curb and just like get rid of him altogether. Maybe even throw him off the balcony. You never know. But Tanya, how about you with Barbara Steele?
I just loved her. I loved her in this film. I feel like, like we were talking about the whole suburban thing. All the characters were sort of like tropes of a cross section of different suburban types. And she was, the strong single woman. But I think they're written, for the fact that they're tropes. I think they're all written pretty well. They're believable tropes. I feel like she has to be in there. That character has to be in there to be among these other suburban types. And I thought she was such a great actress for that role. I just love her.
She was fantastic, and I loved her character too. I actually was hoping to see more of her character because I really dug her character quite a bit. The way she was written in that, and just her portrayal. Barbara Steele is great and she really gets into this role, which is interesting because this film really has a lot of kind of names of the time in this film that's in this kind of bizarre horror film of this relatively new director. So it's interesting to see the names that are attached to it, including, Lynn Lowry. I mean, we're all horror fans here. We're familiar, I think, with Lynn and her nurse Forsyth. Tanya, did you feel that maybe her character was in between, not a Janine, but not necessarily a Betts either? How'd you feel about Lynn Lowry's nurse?
I felt like her character was the sort of character that, even though she was on her own and independent somewhat, she still sort of relied upon a man's approval.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got that was sort of the, I don't know, the idea that they were trying to get across with her character. So yeah, maybe a little bit of an in-between type character. I mean, it feels obvious. I don't know if it's like from our lens, our modern lens, but it feels obvious that he was saying, this is this type of person. This is this type of person. These are the people in your neighborhood, that kind of a thing. And so I felt like she was filling that need, to be that woman that she wants to be independent, but she does still want a man's approval. And, she fills that necessity for the tropes of the different characters.
I missed that episode of Sesame Street, I guess. Yeah. Dawn, how about you with Lynn Lowry's nurse Forsyth? Was she kind of the middle female character, would you say, if you put the three up, against one another?
I was at first I was thinking that she was intended to be the modern ideal of what a woman should be.
Mm-hmm.
However, Tanya's argument is very strong, and I think I'm swinging around to that way of thinking that she's close, but she still is seeking the man's approval thing. And maybe for the time,
Mm-hmm.
1975, and we've come a long way, baby. Maybe for the time, that was as far as they could go.
Sure. Yeah, without risking anything else, though. Cronenberg's not known to hold him back, but yeah, no, I get what you're saying as well. That for the time, it was probably as far as you would want to take that particular character.
Well, at the time, that may be as far as he would have thought about it for
true.
his early movies.
Right. True. Yeah. For the time, how he wrote it is from his perspective. And again, looking at these films through our more modern lens, it's always interesting to kind of figure out exactly what, at the time, what they thought maybe they were writing versus what it is more like through our lens today. But Cara, how'd you feel about Lynn Lowry's nurse Forsyth?
I mean, I want to say to a degree she was kind of at least dated for that time, but I kind of like the fact that she still takes the initiative. Like, she's undressing in the office. She was basically throwing herself at this guy. Then she invites him to dinner, kind of like, well, maybe not right now, maybe later. And then once, the whole shit hits the fan, there's still this preoccupation with, I didn't want your dinner to burn. I'm like, what in the world is that?
Yeah, that one got a laugh out of me. Like, what? And by dinner, folks, we don't mean like she was making, maybe a couple of small steaks or something. She made this man a roast. Like, she pulled that big roast out of the oven, and I'm like, holy God, like, that's enough for like a dinner party. But yeah, she's definitely an interesting character, and she's one that we follow pretty much through most of the film, along with who's supposed to be kind of our main guy, Roger St. Luke, played by Paul Hampton. And yeah, I don't know about just about any of these guy characters. I was like, I was hoping they'd all just get melted right away. Kara, how'd you feel about our main quote unquote hero, or when not, Roger St. Luke, and his role in this? I mean, is he a likable guy? Is a guy you want to root for? Is he just kind of one you want to see get slugged, more or less?
He really didn't catch too much of my interest. I mean, as far as like character wise or development or anything, he's just kind of like just this. At least in my impression, he's more this guy just doing his own thing and trying to get through this whole issue. But I don't know. I don't really see anything of interest that would make him stand out. Kind of like, well, there's this scene that caught my interest, or I have this curiosity. He's just cardboard.
Well put. I had that same exact feeling with him, is that he was kind of cardboard. I'm like, no, I want to see a couple of the other characters, because this one, even Nick in this, even though with his infection, if he wasn't for the infection, I don't think he'd be that interesting either. Tanya, how'd you feel about the men characters in here, especially our quote unquote hero, I guess?
I think you guys are pretty right on about it. I mean, he feels like the sort of like Jason London in Dazed and Confused of the, like he's supposed to be the normie guy, so he kind of doesn't have too much other personality. He's pretty like right in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty neutral, I guess. That's what I thought. I mean, I'm thinking about it in in that tropes idea again,
Sure.
because I feel like that's there, and he's the, he's not, he's in the middle,
Right.
neutral, and so he doesn't have a lot, but he's not very offensive either.
He's just kind of there, cardboard, right?
I think that's on purpose. I think he serves that purpose.
Sure. Yeah. He's just kind of there, moving the audience through these really crazy, insane events that are going on. But he's not necessarily meant to be a standout character himself. Don, how about you with St. Luke?
Oh, I'm totally embracing this whole idea that each character is representative of a certain type of person rather than a character in and of it themselves, because they are, for the most part, they're all very one-dimensional. They're not fully developed characters in and of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at it that way, the character is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and especially when you look at the bigger picture and how each type of personality is going to react to this virus. I mean, he's the guy. No, I'm sorry, not virus, parasite. His personality type, his archetype, is going to try to fight, but will eventually give in because ultimately they're apathetic, because they are the normie.
Yeah, they are the normie. And he gets that almost ballet type ending where he ends up getting pulled into the pool with all of the sexually crazed, infected, parasitic folks, and it's almost whimsical, almost like, yes, here you're being embraced, rather than him.
It is. It's because he just gives in because he ultimately wants to, because he wants to be just like everybody else.
Right. I like that.
Conformist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and pretty much, yeah, that's exactly, I think, what they were going for with it. So,
did you get the? I'm sorry, I'm probably jumping
go
in
ahead.
here.
Go by all means. Go ahead.
Did you get the impression when, since we're talking about this archetype right now, when he went down to the basement to search for the slug parasite thing, and the guy attacked him, and he beat the snot out of that guy? That was the only real physical confrontation he had with the infected people. And then at the end, where he was kind of trapped by the horde of infected, he just kind of gave up because he really didn't have fight in him. And he knew he didn't have fight in him because he was so horrified by what he did. Did you get that impression too?
Yeah, well, you do get that earlier where Forsyth discovers the body he beat this crap out of, and he feels totally sorry. Never mind the fact this guy was going to try to kill him and infect him and give him the kiss of death. You know, he actually feels sorry for the guy he just beat up. Yeah, you're right. He may have given it up at the end because he was still feeling guilt from killing the first one. Cara, what do you think about that with his character? You think that's part of the reason maybe why he kind of gave in at the end?
I think it's and I guess maybe it is kind of that whole need to fit in, but it's kind of like he doesn't have strong character of his own. He just kind of bumbles around and just goes with the flow, and he's just kind of dealing with and trying to get through. But it's just also just kind of like this whole. It's not really like he's fully present. He's just kind of. He just flitters about, just kind of like the whole going with the flow thing. But it's not really like he's really actually present and fully, at least maybe aware or comprehending the situation that he's really in. He's just kind of being more
right,
analytical or distanced from it.
Trying not to accept the way things are, almost in a way.
Yeah, just this whole denial element, something.
Yeah, he does seem to have a denial element to him as well. Tanya, how about you? Do you think part of the giving in at the end is because of the way his character is? He just, you know, and especially the event he had earlier where he actually kills a guy, beating the snot out of him.
You know, I never thought about this way before until Dawn brought it up, but I do think it's because he's sort of Roger St. Everyman.
Yeah.
You know, and I always thought of it as in that's the true horror. Like it takes over everybody because at the end, you know, it spreads and and it spreads to everybody, and then there's no way for him to get out. But I think that Dawn had a good point that since he is such a everyman, not just like he's not the everyman hero, he's just the average guy.
Right.
And he's wants to fit in. He wants to be part of the crowd, even though logically in his series of events, it's like this tragedy or whatever, but in sort of the story arc, he succumbs to it because he does want to be, you know, part of the norm. He wants to be where everybody else is. And I think that's a really good point, because he does stand for that type of person that wants to fit in and be like everybody, be average or whatever. And that's what happens is you might fall into something really negative trying to fit in with everybody else.
But in the end, he was happy because we see at the very end, everybody leaving the pool in their cars to go spread the parasite, aka the love, everywhere and causing mass anarchy, apparently, according to the news report at the end. So I'm not sure what kind of message it is there about giving in, and are you going to be more happy if you give in?
Well, now he fits in.
It also kind of has that whole thing about it. I mean, everybody's in the pool. You've got people that are half naked and all this other stuff. So it's essentially, it was like this whole mass orgy. Who wouldn't walk away with a big goofy grin like that the next day?
This is very true. Hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah, that is true. So I think now I will switch it over here, and we'll get if you have any topic or question that you may want to talk about. And Cara, we'll start with you. Did you have a topic or question we haven't talked about yet that you may want to bring to the group?
Not really that I can think of. I mean, it's just the whole. I don't know. I mean, it kind of seems very ahead of its time. And I guess just that whole semi-sci-fi, that horror element that they were drawing from, but the whole thing with organ transplant and beneficial parasites. I'm assuming that probably wasn't too common a topic even then at that time.
Yeah, it might have been a little heady for the audience that was going to this movie. A little bit to be like, wait, what are you talking about? Science and parasites. Those are big words. I just came here for the blood and the breasts. Where is science? What the heck? Tanya, did you have a topic or subject we may not have talked about yet you want to bring to the group?
I just have something that's very broad, actually. Like for me, I was saying how the reason why this movie works so well is because it is humans as the monster. I mean, there is a parasite, but it's humans as the monster, and then the unwanted sexual advances, unwanted sexual situations. I mean, that whole thing, I just is so creepy and icky to me. And so broadly, just wanted to know how you guys felt about that type of thing, like zombies, parasites, aliens, body snatcher type things. For me, that works really well, and I feel like this fits into that. But also, it's a little bit different too because it's does have that aspect of sexuality that most of the other ones don't have. But just like, what are your guys' thoughts on the humans as monster type genre?
Ooh, kind of like the body snatcher type movies and stuff, right? Yeah, Dawn, what's your take on it? How do you feel about those films? Do they creep you out?
They do. They do. As a matter of fact, recently I just decided to revisit. Gosh, I don't remember who. I don't remember who wrote the movie, but the Puppet Masters. Not the Puppet Master, but the Puppet Masters, the one with Donald Sutherland.
Right.
And I realized just how much these movies do creep me out. Just the idea of you being trapped in your own body and being unable, and just being a rider, not able to control what your body is doing. The level of helplessness you'd feel if you're witnessing it, and if you're not witnessing it, the amount of horror your loved ones would feel watching you do these things and not understanding what's going on. Yeah, that kind of does creep me out. Zombies, on the other hand, I love anything that has to do with numbers. It's a thing.
That was the movie that was adapted from a Robert A. Hyland novel.
Yeah, Highland. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Kara, how about you? How do you feel about the body, the humans being the bad guys, the monsters, if you will, either taken over or parasites or replaced with replicas?
To me, it just kind of seems to touch back on that whole. It brings to light the darkness in everyone. The fact that they're being mind controlled or whatever. A person doesn't really have that that need to actually hide what they really are or what they're thinking. So they're just more acting on impulse or instinct. So it's going back more to that animalistic side of humans. Basically just acknowledging or just dropping the fear of what you really are, and not trying to pass yourself off as something that you aren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find them creeped out because the whole idea you're not control of your body, or the meeting the feral human, a lot of those creep me out more than a basic straight monster, because there is that darkness, and it's exploring the darkness that you realize could be even in the most happiest person, given the right situation. So it is scary. It kind of creeps me out too, with that genre. I'm with Dawn. Zombies, no problem. You know what? I could handle walking around undead, craving brains. Sure, yeah, that's not a problem. But some slug inside of me, making me do things I don't necessarily want to do. Yeah, that's creepy, and that seems to be somewhat of a common theme throughout sci-fi horror, especially, is kind of the idea of people being taken over and either controlled by an alien force or exploring your darkest inner beast, and bringing it to the surface. And I think that's scary because a lot of people can relate to it.
I mean, I kind of see it, I guess, semi in the reverse, is the fact that a person's being actually freed, that they're no longer afraid to do things that they've always wanted to do, or things that they were, had some sort of a need to do. It's that inhibition is just dropped, and it's you just do. You don't have to be ashamed or afraid of it.
So almost along lines of not so much a scary, just a cathartic.
You're being set free. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. Especially if we watch a lot of those films and you're like, oh, look at that person, they just let go, and like in The Purge. Hey, look at those people get to like just beat the snot out of whoever they want for 12 hours. All right, you know what? I'm not sure. Maybe take part of that. I'm not sure. I don't want to say too much because in case the cops ever find this podcast.
I think too, those type of movies play upon, like, if you have any kind of paranoia, it just kind of reconfirms that in a way, like some of the body snatcher ones, or some of the, like in a Stepford way, like, oh my God, could that person have been taken over by something else and be coming after me? And if you have any kind of paranoia issues, it just reinforces that. So I just find that genre like super scary. It just works for me on so many levels.
Is there someone in the microwave? I don't know. Dawn, how about you? Topic or subject?
I already asked mine.
Oh, you did already ask yours. I'm sorry. Tanya, did we get to yours too?
That was mine.
That was yours. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. Been a long week. Well, all interesting subjects, definitely. And this is an interesting movie. And I think we'll wrap it up tonight. And what we'll do is, we did this with the other series as well. We're going to, the question I pose is, say you're leaving Cronenberg, what is one thing that you'll take with you from Shivers while leaving Cronenberg? And we'll start with you, Tanya. What's one thing from this movie, if you could take it with you and present it to someone as you leave Cronenberg, what would it be about Shivers?
Oh, wow. Can I answer it a little bit differently?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
There's a moment that always sticks with me that gives me chills. And I feel like I couldn't just explain that to someone and it would explain the movie.
Sure.
But it would be something I would want to share. So there's a moment in the pool where Lynn Lowry kind of stands up, or she's standing there, and she turns, and she's wearing this purple shirt, and it's wet, so it's kind of see-through. And she's going to attack. And she looks so, like happy and excited, but also aggressive. And there's something in that moment that just gives me chills. And I feel like it just is the movie in a nutshell. It's like sex is supposed to be fun and nice and happy and good, It's supposed to be all these positive things. And there's like that illusion of that. But then underneath there's this, I'm going to attack you and you're going to be taken over. And you can, and if for some reason there's something in that moment where I feel it, and it's really creepy to me. And I just love that moment in the film. I mean, there's a couple other moments too, but that's one that that always stays with me.
Yeah, well, it's, I think, partly due to Lynn Lowry's performance, because she was just awesome in that moment too. Yeah, that's a creepy moment. Kara, how about you? About if there's one thing that you take away with Shivers as you leave Cronenberg, what would it be to say present to someone?
Can't really think of anything too intellectual to say about it, other than it's just one of those crazy movies. I mean, if you're looking to watch a whole bunch of crazy and just make up your own mind for yourself, it's especially if you're just going into it blind and not knowing what to expect and not familiar with Cronenberg, it'll definitely turn your head around.
Yes, I think it will. I think that's why it was not so well received in the theaters, because nobody was expecting what they ended up getting when they saw it. So, and Dawn, the one thing, if you could take away from Shivers as you leave Cronenberg.
Well, with Shivers, as with other Cronenberg movies, things are not always what they seem. And when something at first seems monstrous or evil or vile on the surface, or if something seems good and pure on the surface, helpful on the surface, it may not be. It may actually be the opposite. So you have in Shivers, you have this good, positive community that's not, and then you have this vile, aggressive parasite that ends up that's supposed to be beneficial in helping in being a breakthrough medical treatment,
Right.
but it's not.
No, it definitely is not.
So things are not always what they appear.
Nice. I like that. And yeah, I will definitely say, taking away from Cronenberg, it's, if you don't know what to expect, you see him all over this film. It's got all of his elements, and the one thing I'll take away is that avoid slugs. Any slug. If it looks like a slug, just leave. Just turn the other direction. Get some salt, pour it on there, because yeah, it's gonna invade your body and take over, and then spread like a venereal disease. So, so there you have it, folks. Shivers for our Welcome to Cronenberg episode. Hope you enjoyed our discussion here. And now this is where we go down the aisle and we give my fantastic panel a license to shill. So go ahead, Dawn. Where can they find your stuff at?
Well, when it's not festival season and when it's not trivia season, you can find me in theaudience.net.
Fantastic. And Cara, go ahead and tell folks where they can find your stuff at.
I primarily do horror film reviews on YouTube, so you can find me at youtube.com/horror retrospective, or if I'm just bored and trying to kill time, you can also find me on Twitter with handle retro_horrors, and usually it's just a bunch of random stuff that I just post over there when I'm not working on reviews.
Awesome stuff. Check that out, folks. And Tanya, go ahead and plug away, please.
So I do everything just under my name. It's Tanya Atomic, spelled Tonjia. So if you just look up Tanya Atomic, you can see my stuff. I also write online for The Bloodshed and Ravenous Monster.
Fantastic. And yes, you are one of the main minds behind Manos Returns.
Manos Returns. Uh-huh.
Yay. The master would approve. So we've got to throw that out there because that's just a fun movie. So the sequel to Manos, Hands of Fate. So yes, check out all of these fantastic, talented individuals. There's stuff out there, folks. I do have links on the specialmarkproductions.com website for all of their stuff as well. And yeah, we thank you for taking time to listen to us, I should say, and visiting Cronenberg. And now just say goodnight, ladies.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.